Welcome to the Creative Visionaries Podcast. My name is Tori Barker, a digital marketing specialist, business owner, mom, and you guessed it, a creative visionary. This podcast is about inspiring business owners, building connections, sharing success stories, and motivating others. Join me on this journey as we tap into your true potential and unleash your inner visionary. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Creative Visionaries Podcast. Today, our guest is Robert Kennedy III. Robert is a professional speaker, trainer, author, and podcast host. Robert is a co-founder and president of Kennetic Kommunications. He is known for his energetic presentations that are infused with humor and keep his audiences engaged as he invites them to speak up, speak out, and lead well. Robert, welcome on the show.
Hey, so glad to be here. Do me a favor. I'm a speaker, and so I enter the room a little bit differently than some people do. So just humor me for a second and say, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Kennedy III.
Okay, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Kennedy III.
Let's go! Come on. All right, hold on. Let me bring a friend with me. Hold on. Here we go. Hold on. He's coming from over here. There we go. Let's go. Come on. Oh my gosh. I have fun with life. How about that?
Best entrance by far for the Creative Visionaries Podcast.
Yes. Wouldn't that be amazing if, like, when somebody called your name and you just entered a room, a band struck up and you had, people just with trumpets and whatever marching in.
Love it.
That's like Disney fantasy life.
For sure. And it's like, okay, so here we go. I have a sports background, right? So we always had like our theme song.
Yep.
Right? When we were warming up, we had that theme song. It was like, for me, it was like the Eye of the Tiger. And, and then it was like, you come up to bat, you're playing softball, you got your song going, you're jamming out. I need that now. I need to do that more. I got to incorporate that into business.
You do. I mean, every time I've got to speak, when I'm in the car on my way to the speaking engagement, I've got to have some stuff that pumps me up. I mean, Lose Yourself, Eminem, right? You only got one shot. Okay, I'm like, yeah. So, bam, let's go. Right. So that's how we do it.
The best, Mr. Robert Kennedy III. So, Robert, tell us how you got to this point, where you are today, and the amazing things that you're doing in the speaking and business world. Tell us a little bit more about you.
I mean, you sure you want me to answer that question? That how I got to this point? That is a long question. You see this gray stuff right here? I mean, how much time you got? How much time?
Let's get the condensed version.
The condensed version. Okay. So how about the condensed version? So out of college, I worked in the mental health field for 3 years, and that prepared me great for my next job as a 7th grade teacher. Oh, there we go. All right, good. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here every Tuesday. So after that, I left 7th grade and I taught high school for 7 years. I taught physics and biology. I was a science teacher. I was a college online faculty for 2 years after that. So 10 years in teaching totally. And then I started a company where I developed online learning or e-learning for corporations, was building them for a lot of different companies. Some of them companies, some of them government orgs, IRS, Census Bureau, just doing some of that stuff. Barnes and Noble, working with different companies to help them figure out how to communicate their policies and procedures and all of that to their employees. After that, I started to be asked quite a bit, hey, are you a speaker? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? I mean, you can get paid for that. So I kept being asked that question. And so I finally, somewhere around 2014, said, you know what, let me dig in and find out, what is this paid speaker thing that ye speak of? And so I joined Toastmasters, did a lot of research, stalked some people at the National Speakers Association, and just did a whole lot of that stuff, and eventually really morphed things and started a business where I train corporate leaders, and now specifically people in the real estate industry, how to communicate more effectively, how to utilize storytelling as the basis for your communication. And ultimately, we don't want people to just get information from us. We want them to do something with it. We want to create transformation for people. So I teach people how to create messages that move people to action.
Interesting. It's funny when, like you said, what is a speaking gig, right? You can get
Yeah.
paid to do that.
Yes.
I think it's nowadays it's like everybody knows that, but back, 10 years ago, 15 years ago it was like, what?
Yeah.
And so, podcasting is another great platform for speaking too, right? Especially, pre-COVID and post-COVID, during COVID and all that stuff. It gives you the opportunity. I was always worried about the speakers, those business people who that was their job during COVID, is like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? How do you transition? And so I just love this idea of having a professional speaker, especially like I come from the corporate background, and we always had like these retreats and these company events, and the speakers were always my favorite, especially the ones like you with this like dynamic energy and like just dropping like bombs on the whole day, just like, oh my gosh, it gets just so pumped and so, jazzed and excited to hear what you have to say. And so I love what you do.
Well, I'm hoping it was the speakers like me, that I hope it was the speakers that drew your attention, because in a lot of corporate retreats, I hear speakers that are like, yeah, right. So
For sure. There are them. Yeah,
yes,
they're out there.
yes. So that's part of what my job is, to help speakers, or to help people that have to present ideas not be that snore fest that drives people bonkers.
You need a little liveliness in your talk, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It's interesting because when I first started looking at, speakers in this kind of format of speaking your truth or speaking your story, it was the story concept was so new to me. And, I thought people just got up there and just, presented information, right? It was just information.
Mhm.
And really digging into it and starting to kind of look into it more, everything is framed around a story.
Yep.
And so I wanted to kind of get your perspective on how do you help speakers or prospective, people trying to get into the speaking industry, or even just professionals who have, speaking engagements that they do. How do you help them find their voice and then craft or own that story?
Well, so the finding your voice part is interesting. I think there is something to be said for mentors or influence. When we want to get into a specific space, we look at the people that are successful in that space, and we start to imitate them in some ways, right? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, they say. So I used to sing, and I would sing with this singing group, and I remember we went into the studio to record some stuff, and I was asked by the producer to go into the booth to record a lead, or to record a solo part for the song. And so I go in, and mic comes on, music starts playing. I've got my headphone cups, as they call them. I've got those on, and I start singing, and I sing through the entire first half of this verse. And the producer stops the recording. I'm like, dude, what's wrong? He says, oh, you know what? You sound just like Fred Hammond. And so Fred Hammond is a gospel singer, for those people that don't know or aren't familiar with it. He said, you sound just like Fred Hammond. Oh my gosh, Fred Hammond is such a great singer. You sound just like Fred Hammond. I need you to do this thing again. And now I need you to sound like Robert.
Interesting.
He said, dude, I don't need you to do Fred Hammond's lyrics or licks or ad libs or riffs or runs. I need to hear Robert's heart, Robert's spirit, Robert's authentic voice come through on this recording. And so that's what happens with a lot of speakers. They go out to speak, or they start their speaking journey, and they want to sound like Eric Thomas, or they want to sound like Zig Ziglar or Bob Proctor or whoever it is. Right. And so what is the thing that makes you your youest you? What makes you the most authentic you. And the thing that allows you to be you is your story. When you're able to be vulnerable, when you're able to share experiences that only you have been through, that only you have experienced, then your voice begins to shine through that. Because while other people may have experienced similar things or lived through some stuff, or maybe they haven't gotten there yet, and the reason they're listening to you is because they're looking for guidance.
Right.
And if you're able to share your heart, your core value, your true voice, then you reach people. Then you create transformation in people. So it's important to find your true voice.
So, talking about the story aspect, I
Mhm.
know from a personal perspective, for me, finding the story is the biggest challenge for me.
Mhm.
It's like and I hear this all over the place. Like I listen to podcasts and I read books and stuff, and people talk about the challenge and the journey of finding your story,
Yeah.
because I look at my life and my history and how I got here, and to me, I don't see a story, right? Like, right? To me, it's just me.
Yeah.
But I hear people talk about ways of breaking it down in order to kind of pull that out of you and really figure out, like, okay, this part of your life and this journey that you were on, you didn't know it was a journey at the moment, but in reflection, this is your story. So how do you coach people to find that story and really pull it out of them so that they can believe and understand that they have a story, and this is what the story is?
Wow. Simon Sinek has this great TED talk called "How Great Leaders Inspire Action," and inside of that TED talk, he shares this idea that is core to his books and everything that he does, and it's called "Start with Why."
Hmm. Love
Right?
that book.
Why do you do what you do? He says people may not buy what you do; they buy why you do it.
Hmm.
So start with asking yourself, whatever it is that I'm up to. If I'm a business owner, if I'm an entrepreneur, why am I pursuing this particular business? If I've got a t-shirt business, why am I pursuing a t-shirt business? Is it because I've got this passion for t-shirts? OMG, I love messages on shirts, right? What is it that causes you to stay in this space even when it gets challenging or difficult? Right? And inside of that, there's a nugget. There's something small. It's kind of like, you know what? I love being in spaces where I vend, or there's just energy. I love being in that space. Okay, now back further. Why do you love that? Right? Dean Graziosi wrote this book called I forgot what it was called, Success Millionaires, or their millionaire mindset, or something of that nature. I'm not remember the exact book, but he went through this experience with his coach, and his coach asked him a question, and he was like, "Why do you want to do what you do?"
Hmm.
And he said, "Because I want to make money." He said, "Okay, why do you want to make money?" "Well, because I want to be able to buy things that I without struggling, right?"
Right.
"Okay, why is that important to you?" Right? And he kept asking him why, and he asked him why 7 times, and it's called the 7 levels deep exercise.
Hmm.
And as he went through this exercise, he finally ended up in the space where he said, "Oh my gosh, I want to do this because as a kid, I saw my dad struggle, and I never want to be in the space, and I don't want anybody else to be in the space where they have family, where they have loved ones around them, and they're struggling. I don't want to be in that space." And so that's why I do what I do. So if you're able to find why you do what you do, why you love what you love, why you're in the space that you are currently, what causes you to stay, then you can connect that back using the 7 levels deep exercise. That's one way to do it, but you can connect it back to something that causes you to be attracted to that thing in the first place. Because all of us have a reason why we're attracted to one thing, one space versus
Hmm.
another.
And that's your story.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. Someone else, I've heard of that exercise, but someone else told me or had explained this concept of, it was like, take your age and divide it by 5 or something.
Mhm.
And then that gave you 5 categories of time frames in your life. And like, okay, so from 0 to 8, what is the most meaningful thing that happened in your life, or something that you remember the most or stands out the most? And let's structure a story based on that. And
Yeah.
then the next, section, 9 to 14 or whatever it is. And so that was another exercise that I thought was very interesting too, because
Yeah.
it was like, okay, looking in time, time blocks or time frames in your life, and pulling stories out of that specifically. And then
Yeah.
on top of this, right, like the why is like the big reason.
Yeah.
But
If
I
I were
thought it
to
was interesting.
if I were to coach somebody through that exercise, I would have them do it the other way. Because here's what happens. Most people don't remember the significant experiences that happened from 0 to 8,
Yeah,
unless it was like super traumatic,
true.
right?
True.
Most people don't remember it like in their short-term memory, but we can get them there to remember it. If we start with where we are now and like, why do you do what you do now? And sometimes we can get at it through the jobs that people have had. Right. So before I became a speaker, I went through my entire experience with you here. Before I was a speaker, I was an e-learning developer. Before that, I was a teacher. Before that, I was in the mental health industry. And in the mental health industry, I was a supervisor for people who had mental challenges or mental illnesses in their communities. Right.
Yeah.
And before that, I was in college, and in college, I started 2 singing groups. And before I did that, I was in high school, and my senior year of high school was when I really kind of came out of my shell. And before that, I was known as a shy, quiet kid, right? Who would rather be in his room playing with trains instead of being out at the party. And then before that, when I was 2 to 3 years old, I was in an environment with some people, not my parents, but I was in an environment where people told me that I talk too much.
Mm.
And so I stopped talking.
Wow.
Right. But I didn't recognize all of that until several years ago when I did the backwards tracking and started looking at my jobs. Hey, wait a minute. You were in the mental health industry, but you were in leadership, and you did this. You helped people organize some stuff. You were in college. You formed these groups. You were freaked out and scared out of your minds in doing it, but you did that, and you were on stage in front of like thousands of people. You get to this teaching job, and you're teaching kids, and you're teaching high schoolers. And then you start this company where you're not just developing stuff, but you're teaching companies how to communicate ideas effectively to their employees. And now you're at the space where you're teaching corporations and teaching leaders and real estate agents and brokers and associations how to deliver ideas that then move people to action. So there's this communication thread through my entire life, through everything that I've been attracted to, through every space that I've ended up in. And here's what happens. A lot of times we take for granted that the spaces that we end up in. Right. So, but there's purpose in your space, right? There's every space that you're in. There's something that's connected to where you're supposed to be or something you're supposed to do.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I was kind of thinking in my head of like a common thread throughout my life. And for me, what came to mind was leadership.
Yeah.
And, because I know, leadership is a huge role for me, like in a core value. And when I was in high school, I was in the leadership group, and I was, always the captain of my sports teams. And, when I was in the corporate world, I wanted to be like the leader and help the organization and get them to the next level. And, here I am owning my own business, and I'm kind of a leader in my space and a leader for my team. And so, it's interesting for you to kind of walk through that journey and then put the perspective on myself as well.
So let's back through yours for just a second here, right?
Sure.
So leadership has been something that has been magnetized to you. Why is it important for you to lead others?
Because I want to help them.
Okay, you want to help them do what?
Do what they love doing.
Okay, you want to help them do what they love doing, and what keeps them from doing what they love doing?
Not knowing the direction that they need to go
Okay.
or where
They
to
don't, they
start.
don't, they don't know the direction. There's a little bit of confusion in their world. In some ways, you could say that there's some their voices may need to be amplified. They may need some clarity on direction and messaging for themselves, right?
Yep.
So you're talking about leadership, but what is it that Tori Barker does now? Tori Barker runs something called creative marketing. There's marketing inside of what you do, right? What is
Yes.
marketing? Marketing is amplifying the messaging and clarifying the heart and the story of people and putting it out and creating visibility for it so that people can fulfill their purpose or their business or help others to solve problems.
Absolutely. That's my new tagline. No.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's always been there. We are literally, if we're paying attention, magnetized to the very thing that we're supposed to be doing from very early on in life. And the funny thing about it is some of the things that we see as trauma, some of the things that we see as challenges or detours or obstacles in our lives are the very things that strengthen us enough to be able to do what it is that we do now.
Absolutely. I always say that there's no failures. They're just lessons learned.
Yep.
Opportunities to grow.
Yep.
Because, if you wouldn't have had that experience, you wouldn't be the person that you are today or have grown the way that you have based on a quote unquote failure, as someone might call it. But
That's right.
yeah. So you help leaders find their voice and you help them craft a story. And like, I'm assuming in the corporate world or in business entrepreneurs, you help them explain their vision, right, to like their employees and the people that they're working with. So I'm sure a lot of those people aren't natural speakers.
Right.
And so stage fright is probably one thing, lack of confidence. So how does confidence affect the communication and the presentation, and how do you help them grow from that fear, if you will, because it is a fear-based mentality?
Yeah. I mean, there's an actual name for it, glossophobia, right? The fear of public speaking. And I get people who say to me, Robert, I need to present more effectively in my company. I need to share ideas because it's part of my role and my responsibility, but I'm freaked out by having to get up in front of people because I feel like I'm going to ramble. I feel like I'm going to trip and fall on my face. I feel like I'm going to stay up there and say stuff. And then I'll see these blank eyes and faces staring back at me.
Stares.
Yeah. Right. And I'm all of that just throws me off. It makes me nervous and I'm super anxious about it.
Yeah. I'm sweating. I say, hey, I'm getting hot.
Yeah. And I say, hey, listen, those butterflies that you feel before you have to present or speak? And they're like, yeah, those doggone butterflies. I said, our job's not to get rid of the butterflies. It's to help them fly in formation.
I love that.
So what we do is we look then at what the core of these butterflies are. And as a science teacher, you've got cortisol and epinephrine. These are hormones that run through your body that when your body is experiencing something new, something it doesn't recognize, or something that it's preparing itself for, it shoots out these hormones, and your body's like, right? So
freaking out over
happens,
here.
well, what happens is that you can interpret it in one of two ways. Here's how we know. Because when you're excited about something, cortisol and epinephrine are the very same chemicals that go coursing through your body, right? So all that happens is there is an interpretation that your brain puts on these experiences. So the simple way to say that is it's what you tell yourself. It's what you tell yourself you're feeling. If I say, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out over here. If I say I'm nerves, then that's what my mind is going to interpret it as and is like, okay, run, hide, flee, flight. That's what my mind is saying. But if I tell my mind, You know what? Oh my gosh, we're warming up for the game. We're getting ready to go on the field. I'm about to serve the heck out of these people. Oh my gosh, I have something amazing and I can't wait to get it out of me. Then that's a little bit different and you start to feel a little bit different. And so how do I deal with that? One of the ways that I tell people to deal with that is changing the messaging, first of all. Second thing you can do is change your physiology. So I enter the room with music and crazy stuff, right? Partly because
do you have confetti at your presentations too?
Well, no, I don't. They would have to clean that up, you know. So part of the reason I'm doing that is because I'm gearing my mind up. I'm giving my mind and my environment certain messages. Right? So how do I change my physiology? Okay, the music, dance is one of the ways that I do that. If I don't have music backstage, one of the things I might shadow box. I'm back, yeah, right? I'm doing all sorts of crazy stuff because I'm redirecting my energy. Tony Robbins, before he goes on stage, I don't know if you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event, but the beginning of his event is super crazy energy. Yeah, right? He's coming out, he's like, oh, he's got the music pumping, he's jumping, but he's not just starting to jump on stage. Tony Robbins has a trampoline backstage.
Oh my God.
That he jumps on because he's changing his physiology. He's preparing the energy. It's the same reason athletes, before they get on the field, they're doing, they've got their music, they're getting in phase. They're getting in the zone, in flow, because they're telling their chemicals, they're telling their hormones what to be interpreted as, right? So I think I spoke a long time. I think I should say that. Yeah.
Well, there's something I learned a long time ago, because I was nervous and I've kind of grown out of that nervousness. And someone told me to stand in the mirror and pose like Wonder Woman. And
that's Amy Cuddy.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, that's great, right? So I would stand in the mirror and I would stand like Wonder Woman. And then I'm like, okay, so I've done that enough. And then now it's like, I can't get in front of a mirror, right? I got to go through this quick. So I envision myself Wonder Woman, right?
Right.
And so it's that same concept. It's the thoughts or, the things that you're thinking in your head. It's that mental, prep and the, confidence that you just got to string through your veins and just pump it out.
Yeah. Well, let me define confidence really quickly, because a lot of people think confidence is this thing that some people have and other people don't. They think it's this switch that you flip on and off. My daughter, I taught her to drive a couple of years ago. And when she was learning how to drive, she would get in the car and she would look to her left and fix that mirror. She would look to her right, fix that mirror. Look in the center, fix that mirror, look around, make sure all the buttons that needed to be pressed were pressed. And then she would put the car in reverse, and then she'd kind of look underneath the steering wheel a little bit to make sure her foot was touching the right pedal. And then she would kind of tap it, and you could feel the car move a little bit. And then she would tap a little bit harder. The car would lurch back. And she's doing that because she's scared of pressing it too hard and the car zooming across the street and banging into something, right? So she's very intentional about the amount of pressure that she's putting on all of this stuff. And she's watching it and she's just focused on every little detail. Several months later, my daughter gets in the car after she gets her license, backs out of the driveway and just slams on the accelerator like bat out of hell driving down my out of the cul-de-sac. Right? I'm like, what happened? What happened? Well, what happened was now my daughter had become confident. Why did she become confident? Because she repeated a certain behavior over and over and over and over again until she didn't have to think about it as much. Right? So my definition of confidence is repetition with the expectation of success.
I love that. Yeah, for sure. Reputation without the expectation of success. Is that right?
Repetition with the expectation of success.
Yes. Amazing. Well, Robert, you have so much knowledge. I feel like I can just talk to you all day and we could just go on and on and on and on. But, I want to be respectful.
There's this thing called the sun, right? That does go to It goes down after.
There's only so much confetti in the room, right? We can only do it so long.
Yep.
So, but I just wanted to say thank you. Any final advice or parting words that you can bestow upon us before we wrap up our episode?
Well, storytelling is a big piece of what I do, and I love to share with people that they don't have to go grab somebody else's story. They can use their story. And when you have trouble figuring out what your story is, there's so many different places in your life that you can pull a story from. You can pull a story from a challenge that you've had. You can pull a story from a skill that you've had to learn. You can pull a story from a time that you discovered something, right? All of this stuff that happens in your life is fodder for a story. It's information, it's data, it's the elements of a story that you're ultimately living. And so what I say to people is everything that happens to you in life is your stuff. Your stuff is your story, and your story deserves a stage. So get on out there and tell it. Do that thing. Make a difference for people.
Thank you, Robert. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love that so much. I'm like applauding on you on the background for you. Here we go. Hit that applaud. No.
All right, here we go. You want some applause? Bam.
Yes.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
So how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about the coaching and how you can help people? Where can we find you, and how do you want us to connect with you?
Well, you can find me on all the socials as Robert Kennedy, the number 3. Easiest way to get in touch and reach out is go to my landing page, RK3 That's Me, RK3 That's.me, and you'll find all the socials there. You'll find my website. You'll find some fantastic resources to help you become a better storyteller, better communicator. And you can also just click a button and get in touch with me via email or phone there as well. So RK3, that's me.
Well, I highly encourage everyone to visit that site and get in touch with Robert. He's definitely going to amp you up, give you some skills, and help you elevate yourself and your business. And I thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for sharing all your knowledge and information. And I look forward to staying connected with you and learning from you as we continue through this journey.
Thanks, Tori. It's been my pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for listening to the Creative Visionaries Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, leave us a review, or share with a friend. Also, make sure to visit us online at creativevisionariespodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And stay tuned for more episodes to come. And remember, it's time to tap into your true potential and unleash your inner visionary.